And I think that it's time to change the criticism and the judgment to support of women, regardless of what their choices are.
Especially when it doesn't affect you. That's what I didn't get about this.
Exactly, and that's where I struggle to understand it and say, well, by me not having children, how does that impact your life?
Exactly.
Did you push record?
Thank you so much for tuning into Our Second Act with Paige and Silka. I'm so happy to welcome Tanya Williams back to our show today. Tanya, thanks for joining me again.
Thank you very much, Silka. I'm really happy to be here this morning.
Well, if you remember, Tanya is the author of A Childfree Happily Ever After, and she found us after we did a few videos, on that topic about choosing to be child-free, and boy, did we open up a can of worms, Tanya. And I want to preface this by saying that the reason we started, Paige and I started this, is because both she and I do not have children. I chose not to have children. I made that conscious decision. Paige did not. Paige was unable to have children. And we felt like there's a lot of women out there, going through that same stuff after 50. And yes, we were right. What we didn't anticipate was the amount, tens of thousands of women that weighed in, young women, thanking us for opening this conversation. And then the other thing I didn't anticipate is the hundreds, if not thousands, of men that weighed in, both sides of the spectrum, but some extremely negative. And I should say there were some, I shouldn't put this all on men, I'm sorry, although it was maybe more men negative than women, but there were women that were also exceedingly negative. So what I wanted to have you come back on, one, I want to know how the book is doing. Two, what's your experience? And then three, how do we help these younger women who apparently care about what we think about?
So where do we want to start?
Well, let's talk about how the book is doing and what your personal experience was.
Yeah, sure. So the book has been doing quite well so far. I've had a lot of great feedback on the book from people who have read it, simply because I think it is a different book to a lot of books that talk about being child-free. So I'm not saying that everyone shouldn't have children or anything like that. It's not that type of book. I think where my book is different is it talks about the C word, which is choice. And it's about enlightening people to say, well, this is what being child-free looks like. These are the experiences that we've had. These are the options, because there are now other options. We know close to 1 in 4 women are choosing not to have children. This is, there are other options to have that fulfillment in your life, and this is what they are. And then the other part of the book is a bit of a how-to guide, I suppose. So if you're trying to make that choice, here's some things you can do to try and figure that out for yourself as well. So I think the book is quite different in that respect. So I'm just really starting now with a lot of, some of the media and so forth. But I'm happy to say it has been overwhelmingly positive so far. And look, and I get that there is going to be negativity from people and so forth. And I'm more than happy to address that. I don't expect everyone to agree with me. They don't have to. That's not what this is about. It's about for me, trying to change the dialogue in society around this. So where there is so much judgment and criticism on a woman's choice, regardless of what that is, whether that's being child-free, to breastfeed, to have kids, to not have kids, how you're going to raise your children, and, whether to go back to work after you've had children. I mean, there's so many things that women are judged on. It's not just about this one thing. And I think that it's time to change the criticism and the judgment to support of women, regardless of what their choices are.
Especially when it doesn't affect you. That's what I didn't get about this.
Exactly, and that's where I struggle to understand it and say, well, by me not having children, how does that impact your life?
Exactly.
I don't think it does. It's the same as, you can reverse that and say, well, if you have 10 children, I might not agree with your choice to have 10 children, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't impact my life. It's your life, and as long as you're happy, why should I care?
Yeah. Well, and that's why I want to do more on this, because there is such pressure out there on these young women now. And I know what it was like for us. I really thought it was better, but I don't think it is, based on all this feedback we've gotten.
Yeah, it's terrible. I think some of the pressure that some of these younger girls are going through. Some of it's from a religious or a cultural side, depending on where you're from, because that's, you know, part of your culture and that's what's expected. A lot of the time it's mothers or sisters or friends going, but I want a grandchild. You have to give that to me and all this sort of stuff, which is a very selfish way of looking at it. Because it's not about what you want. It should be about what is best for your daughter. So there are so many angles to that, and I just think it's very unfair to put pressure on anybody to make any sorts of decisions based purely on something that you want for your, you know, I'm talking if it's a mother, like, well, that's very selfish.
Yeah, well, and it's funny that you mentioned the whole selfish thing, because that was like the number one accusation, if you will, that we're being selfish by not having children. I'm thinking, how is that
different having
selfish?
Yeah, well, I would say, well, aren't you selfish for having children? You know, I don't. That's one argument that I really don't quite understand. Well, hang on, it's my life. It isn't the idea of being able to make choices for your life. So how am I being selfish? Who is missing out here?
Yeah.
Apart from maybe, you know, a mother who wants a grandchild. That's just not the right reason to bring a child into the world.
Or to have somebody take care of you.
Yeah, exactly. And by forcing, you know, young girls to have children, that causes a whole heap of resentment. A lot of the time they're just not ready for it. They lose their sense of self. They're going, you know, I didn't want this. It was sort of forced upon me. That causes so many issues from a psychological point of view. You know, that can then get passed on to the child who feels that resentment and feels that going, well, mum doesn't never really want me, or might not necessarily be maternal or whatever it is. I mean, obviously that's a really big conversation. And, you know, and I know that there's lots of reasons why women have children and not have children, but putting this pressure on women, I mean, we've got enough pressure on us as it is, you know, but to add that to the mix, it just, it's unnecessary.
Well, let's put my rant aside and the criticism. Let's get to how in your book, how do you help women? Can you give us, in a shorter segment as we're doing today, some key tips of going through this decision?
Yeah, a lot of the things I talk about are different exercises that you can do. So I think one is as simple as sitting down and writing pros and cons, you know, for and against. Another thing could be sitting down and going, well, what would my life look like with children? And how do I think I might feel about that? And what do I think my life would look like without children? And what could I do on that side as well? So just sort of sitting down and really taking time to think about what it would look like. Certainly another big thing is spending time with women with children. Now, I'm talking, you know, go and spend 24 hours with a woman who has a newborn, or 24 hours with a woman who has a toddler, and get to see that whole 24-hour period, you know, the lack of sleep, and the, you know, what they're actually doing, and so you can get a really accurate picture of what it is. Because I think a lot of the time I hear from women, well, geez, I didn't know what it was going to be like until I had my first child. And then it was like, holy crap, what has happened? I'm in this whole other world and I have to navigate this and figure it all out. But it is so far removed from the world that I knew that it is very overwhelming. I mean, you really do have to go deep. I mean, I never really needed to do that because I always knew that I didn't want them. Simple as that. So I never had to go, oh my God, do I have to, you know, but I know that a lot of women struggle with that. So I think you really need to look at both sides of it as deeply as you possibly can. And sometimes that is immersing yourself in both of those worlds and going, wow, okay, well, this is what I could do if I didn't have kids. But if I had kids, then I'd have all these other great things as well. So, you know, it's, and I'm not saying it's an easy decision, because it probably definitely is not. But I think you do have to go through those exercises, and then also having the conversations with the people around you as well. So having those hard conversations, and perhaps sitting your mother down and saying, I don't know if this is what I want, or if you have decided that that's not what you want, then it's having that decision and saying, Mum, this is my life. You need to let me live. You know, you lived your life for you. I'm lucky enough to have you know, to be able to make these choices for me. You need to accept this is my decision, and be good with that.
Yeah, and I do want to acknowledge that, you know, you or I are, we're not trying to talk anybody into not
No.
having children. It's about the decision that, like you said, both of us knew that we didn't.
Yeah.
But it is about removing the pressure to have children. So Tanya, we're coming to the end of our segment again. Obviously, we talk about this forever. I think what I would really like to do is hold you over for another segment where, since we do have such a large young audience now, young women interested in this, I would like to address more specifically what some of the criticisms are that they're facing that we received. And in the meantime, I will link to your information to your book so they can get it. But if you'll stay over, I'll see you on the next segment of Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
Sounds good, Silka.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For more information on this important topic, we've linked together all of the interviews we've done on child-free or childless after 50. Please visit our website, secondact.tv, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Button's right over here. Thank you.